everybody. This is No Bullshit Gaming Podcast 2.5 Gamers session number 43. We're sharing actionable insights, dropping knowledge from our day-to-day UA, game design, and ad monetization jobs, but also discussing latest industry news from time to time while having so much fucking fun. Again, so much fucking fun. So let's not forget, this is 4 a.m. conference discussion vibe. Let's not take it super seriously. And today we have special guest, Joseph Kim. Joe.
Hello.
Welcome here.
Thank you.
Well,
you guys look great, especially Jakub.
Yeah. Jakub, don't worry. I will draw you again. Oh, here you go.
Oh, he came back. No.
He's pointing at himself.
Do you have
think
any...
You're very important, don't you, Remo?
Yeah. Did anything like fall into your eye and you're trying to get it out? I'm not sure. Okay, so as you might hear now, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I want to ask JK some questions about how is the game development working, and we lost Jakub now. Amazing. It's fine. Let's continue, and we'll see what happens when he joins again. So JK, like quick intro for some people who don't know you. I think like there's like 2 of them in the whole world that doesn't know you. So.
I'm not really that famous, but okay.
Oh yeah, of course. Come on.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sick. Okay, so you want an intro? Okay. So
just like 2 sentences.
Okay, so I'll say, let's see. Have been in game development since about 2010, 2011. Started in social, then shifted over to mobile. And worked for some like big Asian publishers, and then worked at Fun Plus, led development on King of Avalon, 4X, China, then shifted over to Sega, mobile game publishing at Sega, NBC Universal, then have been now trying to start a game studio here in India. I'm in Bangalore, and we're trying to do something here. We're trying to like take a team, but actually very similar to the strategy that I learned at Fun Plus. And so, Fun Plus at that time was not like the number 1 publisher in 4X as it is today. Kind of had early teams that were still learning. Had this kind of model where we brought leads from around the world into China, trying to do the same thing here in India. And as I was talking to Felix before we started recording, it's tough. Yeah, not easy, but trying my best.
Game development. Welcome to game development. It's
exactly
hard. It's fucking hard. But also, okay, so why India? Why not, for example, Slovakia? Come on.
Yeah. I think that, well, first of all, I would say that if you were to, one of the ways that we approach this, and when I say we, my co-founder, Paul Layden, who I met at Fun Plus working on King of Avalon, and I have another co-founder. But when we were kind of trying to think about, building a game studio, we try to think about it from a blank slate perspective. So if we were starting from zero, what would you do, and how would you build long-term competitive advantage, right? And so we call that structural advantage, and it's very similar to the concept that Amazon has. I don't know if you guys read Amazon shareholder newsletters, but there was a year in which Jeff Bezos talked about, if you're ever going to compete, you never want to compete on a level playing field. And so what are the ways in which, if you're starting a new game studio, you can somehow build in structural advantage to your company? And so to your point, whether it's India or Slovakia, but if you think about it, there aren't that many places in the world to build, right? So if you think about, there are certain geographies with specific regional advantages, like, I would say Eastern Europe, Russia, you've got some hardcore tech guys out there. A lot of love for hardcore, military shooter type of games. Latin America has really great artists, for example. And so there's like, there's also certainly cost structure advantage. One of the things that I looked at from like 4 years ago was when you looked at R&D as a percentage of bookings across major public companies, what you saw was there was a major advantage from the non-Western companies. And so when you think about where to go in the world, Eastern Europe, we felt that there was too much geopolitical risk there. And some of our friends who run corp dev at like EA and other companies, like they weren't touching Eastern Europe, and they advised us to also be careful, and we did. China has a lot of legal, regulatory, geopolitical issues as well. And I think there are other countries like Germany and Finland. There's a cultural difference. So that didn't work. And so, we kind of looked a lot at LATAM, which I do think is still, I hope to build a studio out in somewhere like maybe Colombia or Sao Paulo or something like that someday.
Colombia is great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, amazing country, amazing people, amazing food, amazing, basically everything. But, I came out to IGDC, which is like India's biggest game development conference a couple of years ago, met with an Indian studio here. We kind of tried to work together. One thing that I was impressed by was when we were kind of collaborating with the studio out here, that it seemed like there were a lot of folks who were really just eager to learn and to improve. And so I felt like we could try and do the Fun Plus model here. And so that was kind of the strategy. And so that was, so the basis of choosing India was both, one, we had met somebody we thought we could partner up with who wound up being one of our co-founders, Avinash Pandey, who is our CTO, and he had worked on a shooter game before, India's #1 shooter game. And, the cost structure advantage, of course. And then basically, we felt that we would have a competitive advantage in terms of trying to get talent to our studio, because a lot of the stuff that's operated out of India is largely, for example, like live ops, not new game development, a lot of, kind of hyper casual stuff. And so we felt like if we were one of the few companies trying to develop a big, ambitious project here, that hopefully we could find a lot of really great talent that would want to join our studio. And that has been true to some degree, but certainly, it has been just, since we're being brutally honest,
of course.
No bullshit. No bullshit.
Yeah, and I know a number of other studios. So I've talked to like 5 other companies that have set up here or have tried to set up here. And, I will say it's people who come here, and I know there's a lot coming here because I've got a number of requests asking for advice about India. They're gonna be in for some pain. Get ready. But I will say this: like some of the folks that we have hired here are incredible. So if you have the ability to navigate hiring the right people and finding that needle in a haystack, that needle is absolute gold, right? So like I'm working with I hired a couple of PMs that we trained from scratch in the sense that they haven't had product management experience. I put them against any PM anywhere in the world, except I think we're better. Nice. So it's possible to build world-class talent in areas. And I think over time, it'll probably take us a little while longer than we thought to get there. I do think, it was, for whatever reason, it was a little bit easier in China, but we're going to get there, or I'm going to die trying.
Yeah. Aren't you afraid that those PMs will just leave and join some other companies?
Nope.
Okay. Perfect. Oh, well, okay. Amazing.
Moving on.
Yeah. Okay.
And by the way, like I think we're gonna, we're looking for another producer who will eventually convert to a PM. So if anyone out there is looking for a job in India, hit a brother up, and we can check you out. We'll turn you into a world-class product manager. But yeah, I mean, I do think that once we get that third person, if one person wanted to leave, I think we'd be fine. And I do think, though, that based upon my conversations with the folks here, it seems like, like one of the guys says, I'm never leaving. I was like, all right.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's great. Well, that's the best. That's the best approach to work, and great loyalty as well. So I mean,
yeah.
All right, but I guess you already said that, like, is it only because of the CTO that you started building the shooter game, or like?
Well, I don't think that's the only reason, right? So again, I think if you're looking at different countries or cities, there are not that many places, right? So again, not Eastern Europe, not China, and we did look at Latin America, which I think is potentially viable for the future. I would love to set up shop in Ukraine once shit settles down out over there.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that, but for right now, we're all in on India, and we're going to live or die based upon our success here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, but why shooter game then? Because there's the question that is being on my mind.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, well, we are building shooter games.
All good. Yeah. Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
So actually, even before we came out to India, when Paul Layden and I were first thinking about starting a company, we actually started by writing on a board. I call it the $1 billion board. Basically, what are different
Nice.
what are different ideas for games that we think can achieve $1 billion in life of product revenue, right? I mean, and kind of our thinking was we just need to do it one more time. So we wrote down 5 ideas on the board, and one of them was shooter. And when we looked at the market, kind of like the confluence of things that we were looking for. One was where are market trends heading, and where do we think the market is going? Second is what do we have interest or passion for? And third is what are we uniquely qualified to compete in? Okay. And so when we looked at the trends, we saw that there was huge organic growth in shooters. And so what we saw basically with, it wasn't just, for example, Battle Royale, PUBG, et cetera. It was a confluence of factors that actually propelled shooters in the mobile gaming space, right? And so it was not only that particular kind of gameplay, but we had devices. And if you guys remember before, when devices weren't as performant or the sensitivity wasn't as good, you had things like sniper kind of shooter games, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But there was a confluence of device performance, of the gameplay, also back-end infrastructure and costs, things like netcode, things like that becoming more widely available, so that the ability to deliver a game that's economically viable really got unlocked, call it 3 years ago. And so we saw that explosive growth. And so from our perspective, what we thought about was, okay, when we look at the market, there's a huge amount of so I think if I remember the numbers correctly, 87% of the market was 2 subgenres. It was either team deathmatch or battle royale. And if you think about basically the way that games generally tend to progress or evolve, and just look at the history of any game, is that oftentimes you'll see something that I call subgenre expansion, right? And basically, for example, look at match 3. So you started off with a linear saga map, and then from there you had meta-based games like Playrix's Homescapes, Gardenscapes. Then you had deeper gacha-based games like Puzzle and Dragon. Then you had light social like Toon Blast. And so you have these different subgenres that emerge that may actually be as big as the original subgenres from which they expanded off of, right? And so what we were thinking is that if we kind of go into shooter, we study it deeply, that the trends we're speaking to, if we didn't go up head to head against Timmy, Lightspeed, and these other guys in Battle Royale and Team Deathmatch, that we felt that we could probably compete in a new subgenre. And again, if we were early into the subgenre, made the right bet, that we could potentially win, and we would be faster to move into that subgenre and potentially serve specific players looking for a new gameplay shooter experience. So that's the market side. And then in terms of our interests, I'm more of a MOBA type guy or RPG guy, but Paul loves shooters. So from an interest perspective, he's the one leading design on the game. So it's all right, cool. Interest, trends. And then, in terms of what we bring specifically, I would say, we've never made a shooter game. Now, Paul has launched multiple number 1 top grossing games in 4X. I led the development of a number 1 top grossing game in 4X. But what we felt was, even though we didn't have shooter experience, that there were certain characteristics from 4X that we could bring into shooter to create that unique kind of experience that would be differentiated from team deathmatch and from battle royale. And so that's kind of what we're doing now is we're creating a game. And I know and basically we're making an extraction shooter plus some crazy shit. But what we felt
shit is always good.
What we felt is that crazy shit would be things that other studios do not think of, and that we are uniquely qualified to integrate into and provide this different experience based upon, not because we're from shooter, but because we're not from shooter, but because we're coming from 4X and some of the defining characteristics of 4X we could kind of bring into the shooter genre.
Any crazy shit you can mention?
Sure. I mean, I could kind of articulate at from a high level.
One
right?
example.
Okay, well, let me put it to you this way. So what are the top? There's this kind of, for me, 3 defining characteristics of very successful 4X games. So one is deep emotion, right? And so if you understand how to design mechanics with high emotion, you're very successful in 4X. And so in a 4X game, there are players where it's really driven off of emotion and really kind of revenge mechanics, right? Because in a 4X, you could, let's say you invested $1,000, $2,000 into building up your kingdom and all your stuff, and then you get essentially what's called being zeroed, where you lose everything. You may spend $2,000 trying to get revenge. Okay, so not that we're going for revenge mechanics, but this notion of designing for emotion, designing for a specific kind of emotional experience that we're trying to bring players is something that we've kind of perfected in the 4X space. And we felt has not been done in the way we felt it could be done in shooter games. Now, Battle Royale, for example, is a game that provides something that I call high climax, okay? And that's because in the end, if you get number one, I remember a few years ago, I went to my son's friend's birthday party, and there was a kid, like a 10-year-old kid, who was playing Fortnite, and he got number 2. And when he got killed, he got so mad. It's not even his house. He threw the controller across the room and almost broke the TV. And I was like, oh shit, but that kind of emotional experience, right? Yeah. So 3 defining characteristics: emotion, designing for emotion. Second, monetization, right? And so in a 4X game, we are, I don't know, I would consider us one of the best in terms of how do you drain economies, right? How do you design games to take shit away rather than, for example, when you look at the top shooter monetization models in the market today, basically designed around cosmetics, battle pass, right? And there are a lot of problems that I would even say a lot of top designers don't really understand the kind of problems you get from just going for cosmetics in a battle pass. But it's hard, unless you're at pretty big scale, to continue to monetize against cosmetics. So we are better at draining economies, consumables-based monetization models. And we felt that, especially if we were to move to a different kind of gameplay model, more of a stakes-based extraction shooter type of model, that we would be able to enable a monetization model that works for a shooter game that would not be considered, we may still be considered pay to win, but it might be considered fair to play, or more fair to play than average. And so emotion, monetization, and social, right? And so when you look at a lot of games and a lot of mobile game developers and designers, their idea of social is, hey, we've got chat, we've got, a guild. We're a really social game. It's in 4X, you've got players on a real-time map moving around. It's okay, you got a wonder, you've got people trying to teleport into a corner, you've got enemy alliances, you have different roles, you have a lot of coordination, communication that occurs in a 4X game. And that level of social, we're going to take social up to 11. You know what I'm saying? Some of the crazy shit, because I got to tell you guys, Paul's a fucking genius. And we also, I'm not sure if we can announce it yet, but we also have another really great guy. I don't know if he wants me to announce this or not, but first time anyone's hearing about it, from MZ and Machine Zone, who has basically joined us, but I think we're going to keep it on the down low for now. But like some of the shit these guys are designing is crazy. Now, whether we'll be able to execute it or not, that's part of why, as I was telling you, Felix, this shit is hard, right? Like, I was on a call with my wife this last week, and she's like, "Man, why is your face all fucked up?" It's just like, dude, the amount of stress, guys, it's a little crazy, but it's good and it's bad.
There's a part of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you're talking about the monetization and especially the
who's this ghost? Is that you?
Yeah, the draining ability of forex economy. I mean, like for me, it's usually the destruction of property, and like that's how I see it. That this is like the edge that forex has over other games there. So you also already considering something in that manner that you will be using destruction of property.
No, well, I would say I think the most classical examples are destruction of troops, right? Clash of Clans, Game of War, things like that.
Yeah.
Property, not so much, but I do think that we do have, so we do persist a lot more than a typical shooter game, right? And so a part of what we're doing is we're taking gameplay experience, but we're also innovating a lot on the meta, on the system side. And so we've got
there we go, system and vectors. Fuck my life.
Yeah, multiple. Hey, if anyone talks about progression vectors, they got it from me. Okay, so we are persisting multiple vectors of progression in our systems. Amazing. And we got, again, this is one of these issues where the standard orthodoxy thinking is, okay, guys, you should only innovate your 10 to 15%, and then the rest is the same. And we just kind of threw that out the fucking window, and we're like, hey, let's go fucking crazy. Now we're probably gonna have to scale back, right? But like, I but we're doing our best to try and figure out what's cool, and it's hard, as you guys probably know, and we'll see what happens. But I guess for us, we're taking our shot, right? We're going for the home run, and we'll see what happens.
So another question from me on monetization side, just the $1 million question from my side, from Admon. Are you going to put in-game ads in this game?
I don't think so. I mean, we might, but it's not. Yeah. So like every study I did back in the day, and it's been a while, is that Admon cannibalizes IAP. Now I don't know if like you can do, like, I remember there was some controversy around the ability to do various types of segmentation so that you can only truly target like non-payers with ads, but every other study
rewarded
I saw,
ads or like
yeah. But besides that, because like it comes down to the value exchange, right? And so like if I'm getting 0.01 gems for watching an ad, like the players are going to be like, fuck that, right? And so like then if you have to offer 50 gems, but then the dollar cost is a lot higher, then it kind of fucks you on the cannibalization. So
that's true on one side. I think like there are some shooter examples. I think mainly from Turkey. Those guys, I think Critical Strike, they have 50-50 split in terms of ads versus in-apps, and it's not only like great for monetization, but it's also great for you.
But did they A/B test that? Whether the
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
When I think about shooters, it's like typically like they tend to add ads if a user's been in the game for X amount of time without making a purchase.
Sure,
that's kind of the thinking behind shooters, I think.
Yeah, and that's where I mentioned like we haven't thought about it that much yet. I mean, I'm sure we'll think about it later. But where, if I remember correctly, I'm not sure whether you can do, or I guess maybe you can do that. But if we have the ability to do that stuff, we'll certainly look at it. But I remember at least during the time that I looked at it last, there was some uncertainty whether you could specifically target ads only to a select group of players or not. If you guys know better what the current state of
here is the
okay, yeah. So tell me, Felix, what should we do? You tell me.
Have a really good plan for having rewarded ads, but seriously, like usually what people start testing is they put rewarded ads in on day 3 or day 5 after like attracting a user and basically seeing how many rewarded ads they actually watch, and then you can work out the ad LTV based on that, and then you can see if it's actually cannibalization or if it's incremental typically what I've seen is people tend to have ads in some geos, and some geos they don't, or they basically, as soon as someone makes an in-app purchase, they take away the ads completely.
Right. And then do we like what's your thoughts on then setting up the bot farm to click on all the ads so that we get a lot of ad revenue?
Hey, I mean, maybe you can set that up in China or India. Like,
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, what about those ad revenue from the bots? Oh, never mind. So, and like one question I also had in mind. Anything from the UA perspective that you've done already at this stage, or are you planning to do something?
No. Yeah, I think that like, and if you want to go into like controversial topics, like
yeah.
we
Ooh,
can.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right,
of course. No, Friday, yes. Yeah.
Let's go into some controversy.
Yeah.
So, if you talk to any venture capitalist today, and especially now, the common wisdom is, oh, you better be validating your product as much as you can.
Exactly.
That only works for certain things, right? If you're working on some crazy shit, really?
How can you validate?
I've seen that go so wrong so often. So many companies that have wasted so much time and money, and then you got these VCs that have never made a game in their life or a top grossing game.
Yeah, of course.
And like, okay, thank you for the advice, but I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Now, look, product validation makes sense, but then how do you do that? Product validation is situationally, like you have to understand your situational context, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say for us, we take more of the. Oh, by the way, so do you guys understand like the primary models of? Well, this is just my own theory, right? Okay, so I'll explain my theory of product validation, and I'm not sure if this is a widely held model or not, but it's a model that I believe in, and I kind of came up with this. So I believe that there's three primary models when it comes to product validation. Okay, and there's one which is kind of like, it's almost like a pyramid strategy. You're either at the top or the bottom, and when you're at the top, you're kind of like Blizzard or say Respawn, where you believe you are the influencer, you are the tastemaker, you are the design god, and what you make for yourself is good for everybody. So if you like it, everybody's going to like it, right? And you are the tastemaker, influencer, leader. And at the bottom of the pyramid, I would call that the kind of more the bottoms up player-driven approach, right? Riot, player first. Let's get all the feedback from our players. And so in that case, maybe we would have been doing more UA. And so you've got like the top of the pyramid or the bottom of the pyramid model. And then the third approach, which is, and so we're more of like the first and the third. And the third is more like you look for market trends and kind of like product market fit in specific areas but then you try to map that to what you're doing. So you look at trends, you look at, for example, we look at Tarkov or we look at extraction shooters and we think, okay, well, if we were to try and map that to mobile, how would we do that? What would be the correct translation of that, right? And so we're a little bit of the first and the third, but you can't run ads on that, or it's harder, right? And I think the mistake that a lot of companies have done is to rely on players' opinions for something that's not made yet or that's not well described. And so if you can't give an audience something that they really understand or that's new, then you wind up with a lot of weird shit that happens, right? And so I've seen these like Frankenstein games, like some crazy shit, because it's like, oh, we gotta, and I'm gonna tell you guys, right? This is brutally honest. So you want me to be as unhinged as possible? It's you got some guys who are basically just who are basically cowards, right? Execs at companies who are too cowardly to make a call, and they don't want to have the ability to have the finger pointed at them. So they're like, oh, well, we ran this study. We hired these consultants. They said we should have done this. And so if you're a pussy, yeah, of course, you're going to go for your player validation and market research. Right.
That's what I always say. Like, hey, so if you're afraid of testing like iOS campaigns, blame that on me. I'm the consultant. You can blame me. That's it. Yeah.
So Matej's built a career off of this phenomenon.
Yeah,
throw me under the bus, boys.
Exactly. No, like you would be surprised. Like, oh, that's it. Okay. Well, easy then. Because these days, like everybody's talking about, oh, well, you need to do market research and you need to do all these like marketability tests. Of course, I mean it makes sense, but of course, like it makes sense to
you have to understand the situational context.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So. All right, so I guess that's your opinion about market research.
But I'm just trying to explain why we're not doing any UA, right? Because we're in kind of early mid development. So
no, of course. But then the question is, if you were in a different situation and like okay, so you're most probably gonna build some less crazy, would you do it? Or you would just
Yeah. So like I think this is the who is it? Was it Toon Blast? I forgot the game, but they basically they designed their game by looking at an existing successful game, just going through all the ratings and reviews and reading all the comments and trying to fix those, and then just testing a lot. So I'm not saying that's not a viable strategy, but that depends on what are you going for, right? What do you what is your specific product strategy? And then you got to fit that with what you're doing. But like, I think that's the thing that we see time and time again, as whether it's product managers or, kind of business leaders or strategists, is that, everybody with their hammer tries to hammer everything. Right. So like, it's, this is a mistake that's going to be made over and over and over and over and over again, unfortunately.
Of course. And you talked about looking at like trends, but how exactly are you looking into trends? Like what you can expect from the market? So you sit down, look into the data AI or Sensor Tower, or like looking at top grossing charts, like how do we approach that?
Well, it helps to be cool like I am.
Of course, yeah. Because you get all the data, all the data from every.
So it just kind of naturally flows into me, right? No, but yeah, I think it comes from. I think it basically just comes from curiosity and what you have interest in, right? And so like, I do think that like if you are a hardcore, CCG player and you're playing a lot of CCG games and you're looking at different kinds of things that are interesting for you and you see different things happening in the world and you can tie those together, then I think that's where you are trying to get insights, right? Where and ideally insights that aren't obvious, because that's where you have the bigger market opportunities in terms of the non-obvious insights.
Okay, nice. And we have some, I think this is a question for all of us, because I've been hearing this from different sites, which is death of the free-to-play. Or was because all like you said, from the VC side, there are different, information flowing in, and everybody's talking about like how free-to-play is dead. So, Felix, do you think free-to-play is dead?
I've gotten 3 call requests from random like financial groups this week, and I did 2 of these calls, and both of them asked like, "Is free to play dead? Is it over?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not. It's not over. No, it's nowhere near to be over." And like none of the data says it is, and like everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, it's going down from last year," and I was like, "Man, you got to take out 2 outliers. We had 2 of the weirdest years ever, which was COVID. If you have a data set, you always take out the outliers, and if you look at 2019, mobile free to play is still growing."
Nice. Okay. JK, is mobile free to play that?
Yeah, no. Yeah. So I agree with Felix. I do think though that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding though, where, and it's kind of tied with this whole concept or discussion around, are games recession resilient, for example, right? And the misunderstanding is that actually I believe games perform very well in recession, but I think the misunderstanding comes from the type of spend on games. Like right now we're seeing Steam usage at all-time highs, PC games flying off the shelves. Why? Because during recessions, people shift to alternatives, right? And entertainment in the form of games provides the highest entertainment value, on a per hour basis, or whatever, right? But IAP spend, and this is the thing that I will kind of agree. Not that free to play is dead, but free to play should be down. It should be.
Yeah.
Why? Because IAP spend is discretionary. Quite easily, right? You could still keep playing, but like a lot of the higher spend as we go, like if we go into a global recession, do I expect IAP spend to be down next year? Maybe like 2 years if we're in a recession for 2 years? Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Is it dead? No, but being part of like a little bit of a down cycle to me doesn't mean anything.
Of course, on the opposite side, it creates a lot of opportunities, I think.
Absolutely. I will say this, that based upon what has been happening in the market and based upon, the fact that you've got these execs who always plan linearly, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm hearing from a bunch of different studios, a bunch of different people that a lot of new game development budgets are being slashed, are being cut and being shifted to more, hey, let's allocate dollars more to the safe stuff, the live ops. And so those budgets being down makes sense to me. And as an entrepreneur that's not going to launch for a couple of years, I mean, that's great. It's like, yeah, keep taking away those new game budgets. Clear the space for me, guys.
That's what I said. Like if anyone asks me like, okay, so it's free to play, that yes, it's dead. Go away, please, because then it's like more room for me and then the company I work with. That's it. Jakub?
Yeah, I think it's more of a question that you now need to put more effort for the same amount of revenue, like a few years ago, I would say, because the playing field just got kind of harder, and you need to take in more factors into account that are, I would say, much more important now. So a good example would be, for instance, Survivor.io or something in that matter, where like applying hyper casual mechanics in order to widen up the audience seems very, very important now, as it was, I would say, not that important a few years ago. Now it seems to me like a must have. And yeah, it's just because the CPI game is different. Therefore, you need to, pick up your CPI game. And that's one of the things to the playing field.
UA manager over there. You need to pick up the CPI game. Wow, there you go. Okay. What do you know about CPIs, Mr. Jakub?
Listening to you from here and there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we do listen to you quite a lot, Matej.
Unfortunately, I know. You open up Fridge and then I'm there looking at you, of course. Now, okay. I think I have like one segment that I added into the doc that nobody saw before, because I did it like in the afternoon yesterday. So
I haven't seen anything anyway.
So
don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's called like what if segment. So it's like, what would happen if, for example, ad monetization disappears? Of course, like Felix would be super sad. But
Very
what
sad.
would that mean? Yeah, I know. What would that mean for game design, Jakub? Or JK, or maybe I can even talk about that. Anything that comes into your mind.
Again, it will be harder now because a lot of games are relying on that.
Hey, Jakub, no bullshit. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking. You will probably need to focus more on conversion then, because ad monetization was that great kind of alternative source where you don't really need to go into conversion. So I guess special offers and segmentations would need to go on steroids, I would guess.
Ooh, live ops on steroids. Okay. I think like what if there is no App Store next year? It's only Google Play. What?
Why would there be no App Store? Are you talking more about alternative app stores, or?
That's like what if? Yeah. What if like Apple just canceled the whole store? What would happen? Of course, it's there.
That's rephrasing my question from 2 paragraphs upwards, when I said like there will be an alternative app store next year.
Of course,
there will be
100%. There is already Samsung. There's already Huawei, and what else? Do you think is?
There's a bunch of Chinese alternative app stores.
Of course,
right?
100%. That's true. Well, okay. I think there is Felix. There was one interesting thing about the iOS in the EU.
Yeah, it got leaked. What was it, 2 days ago? That Apple is working on allowing sideloading for only in the EU, and it's going to be rolled out basically in 2024. And that has quite interesting implications because then essentially that's the first time iOS will be open up to sideloading, and that means there will be alternative app stores in the EU.
Mm.
Now, the interesting thing is if that follows in the US afterwards. I mean, US is a bit more friendly towards business compared to the EU, but that opens up quite a lot of possibilities. I've been thinking about this. Like, I could see all mobile carriers in like the EU making their own app stores and starting to compete head on with content to kind of keep their subscribers happy. So
yeah. I don't think it's going to be the carriers that win though, right? It might be more
No.
Microsoft with like a Game Pass type thing, or I'm sure Epic's ready to like put their stuff out there as well.
Yeah, it's good if mobile developers. There's going to be a lot of money sloshing around to basically make games for these new like platforms. That's for sure.
But isn't the sideloading going to be slapped with like 27% Apple tax cut?
That wasn't leaked. No one knows, but knowing Apple, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, because if you're sideloading, you won't be on their payment rails, but they might charge a QA fee, right? Something like that.
I think like this walled garden approach will take more than this in order to break.
Oh, I hate the term walled garden. Oh, come on, guys. All right. Anything else interesting? It's gonna happen until the end of the year. I mean, it's already mid-December, but I guess not gonna happen, right? Any comments about like shift in terms of the current business models, more skewed towards the Netflix games, focused on retention without IIPs, or like Xbox Game Pass subscriptions? I mean, I have no idea, but I would definitely love to hear from you guys about it.
Yeah, this is currently like a trend that I keep seeing, even though like everybody is pretty much rolling their eyes on it in the industry, if I understand correctly, where Netflix is pretty much pushing either old free-to-play games that were not successful on their store without any monetization, or ordering directly games that are supposed to be free-to-play without any monetization. So if I understand correctly, the whole thing is that make games that only focus on retention to keep people paying the Netflix subscription, and that's it. And they're hiring like top talent in Finland to do that from free to play.
We talked about it so much already. I mean,
but I haven't seen anyone from the industry that says, "Oh yeah, that makes sense for me." like everybody is just like, this doesn't make any sense in my book, and also in my book, of course. So if anybody is there, feel free to write us or tell us. But I don't think this is a viable strategy.
Well, I guess it's not. But then I have one other question, since and JK already brought it up. Our like landscape now with VCs and everybody, and like funding in these days, it's kind of hard. Or getting funding, it's kind of hard, right? So if that's what I've been hearing, at least from some of the guys.
I mean, I think I would say funds are, from my perspective, from what I'm seeing, from what I'm hearing, funds are still deploying. Now, I think it's going to be down, but they're still deploying. And in some places, like I think here in India, man, I think they're ready to invest, right? Like it. So I think it depends on. Again, this is probably more situational context, but it does seem that while I from what I'm hearing, I just think valuations are down a little bit, which it should have been down, right? Yeah. And there's a little bit more due diligence now because of all the all the news and other things, and so like you got to be a little bit more buttoned up. But I don't know. I'm not. I think there's a lot of great teams out there that seem to be able to get funding for pretty good valuations, and still I think and here in India maybe very high valuations. So I think it's still like if you're out there and you're scared of trying to get funding in this environment, was it better 6 months ago? Hell yeah. You waited too long, but but you can still do it as far as I know. I mean, I'm not saying anyone who should have gotten funded not get funded.
Okay. So of course, I mean it's definitely harder. That's
The
that's
Web3 buzzword stopped working these days.
Yeah, if you put Web3 in your pitch deck, then it
You can't
not
just slap a
working.
blockchain on a game anymore and get a bunch of funding. Yeah.
Is there going to be a new buzzword? It's going to be slapped into the pitch decks? Or
Well, it's all generative AI, right?
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, there's generative AI. Everybody is talking about how the game teams are fucked now because like the new ChatGPT.
ChatGPT.
Yeah. It's it can write code and can write like design documents and even Appstore description.
It's, I would say, a little bit exaggerated. It was already banned on Stack Overflow forum because the code was so wrong.
Okay, well, but you don't see that on LinkedIn that much, So that's
because you just read the surface titles.
No, it's just it's not that popular.
Are you going to change any developers for AI?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's not gonna happen anytime soon. Like, of course, like it's interesting, and of course it can help, but it's like I hate it so much. Like when everybody's like, okay, well, there's a new thing and it's gonna replace everybody. No, no.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like maybe not like the generative AI. I do think there are smaller niche applications for generative AI, but I do think that large language models and other forms of AI, like we're doing stuff with that right now, which I think could be pretty exciting. We'll see. But yeah, one of our features is largely a couple of our features, one shorter term, one longer term, will have a core basis in terms of being enabled by a lot of the recent tech. So it's not replacing anything, but it's certainly gonna enable some cool shit. So
yeah, 100%. Although I use Midjourney for my newsletter and it's working super well. Yeah, I spend a lot of time, like every day almost, like trying to find out what's the best prompt to use. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. But that's it, I guess. Okay, so let's end this with one last question, which is this. So since you've interviewed like millions of people, JK, on the Game Makers YouTube channel, what would you say is the best advice you've heard how to approach like building free-to-play mobile games, or anything you think can help like entrepreneurs starting their own companies?
I don't know.
No bullshit. Don't forget.
Yeah, I don't. I can't think of any advice during a podcast, but I haven't had that many interviews focused around building a game or a startup. But I would say my own advice would be, if you're starting a company, make sure your co-founder relationships are really good, right? It really is. I mean,
shit goes sideways. That's the most important part.
Are you really going to be able to stick with your co-founders? I got lucky. Like the two guys I'm working with are really good dudes. Love those guys. But like, I have seen a lot of unhealthy, and like, dude, it's stressful enough. Like, look how fucked up my face is right now, right? Like, it's stressful enough with the normal shit, and then if you got co-founder bullshit also
on the top of everything,
then it's just it's going to be really, really hard to work out. So not saying that you can't have relationships in which are where you have a lot of conflict that can't work. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but I'm just going to say life is short, and so if you can find a group of co-founders that you really want to be in trench warfare with, then that really helps a lot.
Nice. Great.
Someone you can see on camera, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Someone you can actually see his face.
Actually, we just wanted to surprise you. Remo is actually AI generated. That's not Remo.
Yeah. It's AI journey right there. And we pre-recorded the questions and everything from his end. Oh man! I'm gonna use Midjourney to actually draw you for the podcast.
Genius! Yes.
Oh man, amazing, perfect. And with that, thank you very much for listening. Please continue subscribing. We hit on YouTube 666 subscribers. Obviously, the overall number is close to 1.5K, which is amazing. Thank you very much for the support. And please share the podcast with your industry friends, colleagues, dogs, and cats. That's special. Thank you, JK, for coming.
All good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye.